Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Life Science Rundown. This is Nick Kapman with the FDA Group. Before we jump into our discussion for today, just a little bit about the FDA Group. We help life science companies in the areas of quality assurance, regulatory affairs, clinical operations, commissioning, qualification, and validation, as well as manufacturing and engineering. We offer 3 different engagement models, which are consulting, staff augmentation, and full-time employee recruitment. So if you ever find yourself in need, just head over to thefdagroup.com, check us out, and get in touch. So today I am going to be speaking with Larry Stevens, and I'm going to give him an opportunity to introduce himself. What we're going to be talking about is the growing number of enforcement actions stem from inspection alternatives. So there was a really good RAPS article that's going to guide this conversation. Essentially, as a result of the shift from traditional inspectors to alternative methods during the pandemic, many FDA GMP warning letters and import alerts in 2021 were based on product sampling and reviewing firms' written responses to record requests instead of actual inspections. The forward-looking question here is that given the Omicron variant has paused and some inspection activities again have paused, the FDA has stated that they may continue using things like remote record reviews well into the future. How can firms make sure that they're prepared to submit to these reviews and alternative inspection methods? So I have several different questions I'm going to be asking Larry, but before we get into those questions, Larry, would you like to give an overview of kind of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, well, I've been working with Nick for almost 10 years now as a contractor to the FDA group. I've also been very recent, in the last 4 years, I've been able to get opportunities to work as an expert witness on the FDA regulation of medical devices. I have a rather unique background. I started with FDA in 1972 and worked for 10 years. Then I went into the medical device industry in the areas of regulatory, quality, and clinical, worked my way up the ladder to VP, and for 18 years did that. And then 2000, I went back to FDA and worked for a more modern FDA, not modern by any business standards, but and I thought I knew FDA really well until COVID hit, and it's really changed the way they're doing business. And I understand because I just did a mock FDA virtual audit on a company where I never actually visited the site, but there was some issues with getting documents, and there are things that companies should be aware of, because I don't think FDA is going to stop doing this. In other words, the sample collections, they've always done that, but they're going to do more sample collections because they've issued a lot of warning letters on if they're finding stuff. And the other is that it's more efficient for them to do these record audits than it is sending people out. And so the on-site inspections will pick up again, no doubt about that, but I don't think the virtual inspection is gone.
Yeah. Well, what is your overall takeaway from the news that so many warning letters and import alerts were based on these inspection alternatives recently?
Well, I think FDA is going to enforce some way. They're not going to, if they're not doing inspections, they're going to find some other way to do it. And the import alert issue, I'm very familiar with, because I ran the FDA import office out in California for 5 years as the director of that office. And import alerts are a very, very powerful tool. And I recently got an expert witness case that was based on a virtual observation by the FDA, but the FDA, the import alert keeps your product out of the country. So it's a very powerful action. If FDA isn't happy with the product that's being imported, they put it on import alert. It gets automatically detained, and if you can't find the information, it's going to go back out. So I'm not surprised that this happened. But I also know, as one who, as a compliance officer for FDA, I wrote warning letters. The key is the violation. All the compliance officer needs to do is to get the documentation, either a violative sample or a report I don't know that they're issuing FDA 483s for these inspections because it's not an on-site inspection, but it doesn't stop them from writing a report citing violations. And that report could then stand as a basis for a warrant, and it has. We know that in 2021, that a significant number of warning letters came from records review. And that's kind of unusual for FDA, but it's the real world of today.
Mm-hmm. How do you see things like remote record reviews and remote interactive evaluations being permanent tools in FDA's inspection program?
Well, again, I think that it's more efficient. It's interesting, the record review. FDA has legal authority to review any records that are generated to show compliance with the good manufacturing practices. So testing results, protocols, inspection reports, all those FDA, and they look at those during inspections. And I think most companies are aware of that. But the point is they have authority to review those. And what the FDA is going to do, and what they are doing, and I think they will continue to do it, in the case of the two companies are suing each other over it, but the FDA refused entry of the product because the foreign manufacturer could not document that they were following good manufacturing practice regulations. Either they didn't want to, or they weren't following them, or what they are doing, FDA looked at their documentation and said, well, this is really not sufficient, and they refused entry of the product. So if you get a request from FDA for a record review, don't be shocked. And also, how you do it is going to be interesting, because the virtual audit that I did recently, they used a Dropbox. And as I would send them a list of things I wanted to look at, and they would put those in the Dropbox. But I was a consultant, I wasn't the FDA. And they were happy from what I found that I wasn't the FDA. And then I could look at them. But the problem you've got is that if you give a document to an FDA person, they can copy that and you won't even know it. And that's different. You should know that. So I had a non-disclosure agreement. If I shared any information, they could sue me. But the FDA, I would suggest that you get a shared screen. And when they ask to review a document, you bring up the PDF file and you let them review it in real time, right at the time you're with it. And if they say, I want a copy of it, you can ask them why. In other words, because you don't want to give them any evidence you don't have to. So, but the big deal is that the company should have a procedure. Okay, what are we going to do when FDA sends us a record request? How are we going to handle it? What was the steps we're going to go through? Because you don't want to not give them the documents, because that'll get you a warning letter. So it's I think going to become a tool that FDA is going to use with delight, because it's easier for
them. When you ask them why do you want a copy, can you imagine an instance where they say, "Oh, never mind"? Or,
oh no, absolutely. I can't imagine. Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Because if FDA investigators are trained on the quality system regulation, and they know how to review documents, but they don't know how to really deal with extra legal actions. Like, for example, if you're during an inspection, an FDA person asks for a copy of a procedure or something like that, you can get it, you can review it with your internal people, make sure it's the right one and the right issue, and then you write on it, copy given to FDA on such and such date. I don't know how it will work electronically in the sense of that, but I think challenging them, a lot of FDA people will ask for everything. And if you give it to them, they'll take it. So it's not inappropriate to say, you can review this document, but I don't really understand why you would want to take a copy of it. What good would that do to you? And the person may not actually have a good reason, and they might just say, okay, never mind. I don't really need a copy after all. And of course, if that's the outcome, that's a good outcome.
Yeah, excellent. Wow, good insight. How well do you feel the average manufacturer is prepared to accommodate these alternative oversight tools?
Well, not well at all, I don't think, because it's so unusual. I think they're in a state of giddy that FDA is not doing on-site inspections, and I worry about the compliance status of some of these companies. To think, well, FDA is not coming in, we can back off. I would suggest using consultants in place of FDA to come in and assess your quality system on a regular basis. If you're working on the EU requirements for the medical device regulation, a new regulation, there is a notified body inspection required, and I think they're still doing inspections because they get paid for it directly. So it's important to not relax and say, well, FDA is not coming out, let's just fire the RAQA guy, he's getting too much money anyway. You never want to do that. But the other part is importers. I think that ordering products made outside the U.S., particularly drug products or medical devices, the compliance of the manufacturer is very important. And FDA has in the past done a lot of foreign inspections. They sent me up, all over Europe and to Australia too, for that matter, doing foreign inspections. But then those inspections stand as a record to allow that product to come into the country because they show they're compliant or essentially compliant with the GMPs. Now, if they can't do foreign inspections, they may ask, as they did in this one case I'm on, they may ask the company to prove that they're compliant with FDA. So if you're an importer of a medical device, particularly if you're arranging to import a medical device that's been on the market other places, it's gone through the 510(k) process, and it's been authorized for sale in the US, and so you order it to come in, but it'll be the first time it comes in. I can tell you what the import office does. They hold that, and they check the registration status to make sure that the manufacturer is registered, and then they sometimes will collect a sample. They're collecting more samples now, but the third thing they do is check the status of the compliance of the company. If there's no FDA inspection of that facility, FDA may ask for some kind of a document to show that you have a quality system that meets our 820 or 311. And I don't think companies have that. That's something they might want to start thinking about if they're an importer, and if they're importing new drugs or new devices from outside the US from companies who don't have an inspection history with FDA, they might want to start preparing in advance a document and get it reviewed by people who know what they're reviewing, and let it stand as a way to show that you are operating in compliance. You just didn't have that FDA inspection. I don't think companies are ready for that, but if they're importing, they need to think about that.
What are some potential readiness blind spots or gaps that a company might have here? In other words, where are companies likely not prepared?
Well, I think they're probably not prepared with internal staff. In other words, the change of the approach is that they are not coming on site, but they're going to be asking for records. Well, do you have the people who are familiar enough with your system to be able to get those records expeditiously? Do you have them all as PDF files? In other words, do you have an electronic way of displaying those things that will allow somebody to remotely review the documents? If you haven't got that, you need to make sure you are thinking about it, and that you've got the staff trained on that and how to do that, and run through mock requests to see how well your people can respond. The thing is, you got document control people. Very few of them are actually filing papers anymore, because most of the systems are electronic. So your document control people actually have an easier job now, because they just make sure that you're using the computer system correctly to modify documents and getting them approved. So some additional responsibilities then could come in for FDA virtual inspections, where records are requested involved. So I think that an assessment. I think a company should do an internal assessment. Are we really ready to deal with this? And you may not need more people, but you may need to reassign people. I think one of the things that I wonder how the FDA is going to handle is process validation. In other words, during an on-site inspection, you go out and you look at the manufacturing processes and you pick the one that looks like it's the most critical one, and you say, okay, I want to see the IQ, OQ, PQ for this, and I want to see your master validation plan. I don't know if FDA is asking for those, but they probably will. If they're going to substitute virtual inspections for actual on-site inspections, then they've got to look at process controls and process validation. And the question is, do you have those kind of documents ready to be shared with FDA electronically? Do you have the reports, the validation reports? It's similar that you would do on an on-site, but you have, it's your routine, and you go get the report. If it's electronic, you print it out and you give it to the FDA guy, and they read it, and then they give it back to you, and you're done. Well, that's not going to happen. So having a system in place where you're able to anticipate what the kinds of questions FDA would ask, and if you've been through a few inspections, you know what they look for. Then thinking, okay, virtually, how would we deal with that? And I think if you're a compliant company and you've been working hard to stay in compliance, I think the only question is, can you document that well? You're not going to have to correct a lot of stuff. But if you got problems, the virtual audit will bring them out. I can tell you that. This audit that I did, I was hired by a company that is using a device company. It's a combination product. The company has an approved drug, and they offered an opportunity for the delivery system to be used with them, and they wanted me to audit the design history file for the device component. So I did that virtually, but I did something else, which FDA will do. I looked at their website, and I found out the website had testimonials on it. And I asked them, is your product on the market yet? And they go, no, it's not. I said, well, your website is kind of implying you got satisfied customers. You don't have any disclaimer on your website that it's not authorized for sale yet. And then on the website, they referenced a clinical trial. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And so I read the report, and I said to them, did you open up an IDE for this study? No, we got an IRB approval. It's a non-significant risk. Well, it's not a non-significant risk device, I can tell you that. They stretched that. So that became the big issue of the inspection, and that is a warning letter. If I were FDA and I found out a company did a study, a significant risk study, and didn't submit on it, they would get a warning letter. That's so virtual inspections, we know now already from the data from 2021, can result in regulatory actions, and you need to be prepared for that.
Yeah, excellent. So this is my last question, and this kind of piggybacks on what you were just talking about. What would you advise companies that might not be confident in their readiness to accommodate these requests to do first to solve that? And how could a outside consultant provide unique and important value there?
Well, I think that I've been working with Nick for 10 years, and the things that is offered by the FDA group is the FDA perspective on. He's got a lot of ex-FDA people working for him, including me. You can provide that FDA perspective, and I think companies should think about engaging the FDA group or some other qualified consulting company to do a virtual audit and get challenged on it. And the first one I did was, kind of winging it, but now I feel pretty comfortable at it. So it may be a new service that other companies will come up with. And why is it important? You don't want to learn from FDA that you got problems. Learn it from the consultant. There's no downside to it. You take the information and you say, okay, we can fix it, and you're not in trouble. But if you wait for FDA, and you get the 483 and it's bad, you're already in the regulatory pathway. So I think in the area of compliance with the virtual inspections, mock virtual inspections are probably a good thing to think about.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I've had some clients or potential clients say, well, we were thinking about calling the FDA and having them come in. And I said, well, if you thought you were breaking the law, would you call the police and have them take a look? Like that's not what you do. You call a lawyer, or in this case, you'd call a consultant.
That is funny. As somebody who thinks of the FDA as a service organization, it's not. They're a law enforcement organization, and calling them in is not a smart thing to do.
No. So, well, this has been really insightful, Larry. As always, I really appreciate it. Hopefully, I didn't snort too much. I'm feeling a little under the weather. Plus, I made a mistake this morning. I went to take my daily multivitamin and I accidentally took melatonin. So I'm kind of foggy. So hopefully I didn't come off that way in this podcast.
No.
But as always, if you find conversations like this valuable, please share it with a colleague or your professional network. If you haven't already, subscribe to get updates of new episodes at thefdagroup.com/podcast and follow the FDA group on LinkedIn. If you'd like to connect about project or resource needs, head over to thefdagroup.com to get in touch, and feel free to connect with me personally on LinkedIn. So Larry, again, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.